everyone, it's Shari Carroll for SimonsStamp.com, and I have a card here I've created using a Stamplistic stamp and also some layering dies. It's really a unique process of how they are put together. So I have the stamp here and it says unmounted, but I want to show you some of the detail up close really quick. It says it's unmounted, but it's actually on a foam piece, so it's just like a cling stamp. And then I'm using the sunshine layering dies, and there's 9 pieces in this whole set, so you can choose which pieces you want to cut out from your stamped image. For my card, I'm using the Tim Holtz watercolor cardstock. This is 8.5 by 11. You could also use the smaller sheets of 4 1/4 by 5.5 if you want. I am using the Tim Holtz stamp positioner to stamp my images, and right now I'm peeling off that backing sheet to this stamp, so it does have the full cling foam on the backside. And how I like to work the platform is to position my stamp right onto the cardstock that I'm going to be stamping. Then I can shut the door, and first I need to flip this around if you haven't used the platform yet. This is how you flip between clear and cling stamps. So now I'll have the door grab the stamp and I'm ready to roll. I'll be silver embossing my images, so first I want to use my anti-static pouch onto that paper so that none of my finger oils or anything else will stick to the embossing powder when I go to emboss. I have just inked this up with the Simon Says Stamp clear ink. Now I can shut the door, and I like to put quite a bit of pressure on my platform and give it a little bit of CPR. Then open the door, inspect your piece before you take the paper off just to make sure. And mine looked fine, and I have a catch sheet underneath, and I'm using the Simon Says Stamp silver embossing powder. I think I have a little bit of glare there, sorry about that. So all I need to do is sprinkle this on all over the image, and by using the catch paper underneath I can just let the embossing powder just fall right onto that sheet, and in the end I can funnel that right back into the jar. So I have this all spread out. I'll just tap that off a little bit and then tap with my finger as well to get off the excess powder, and I'll show you how much detail this stamp has. It's absolutely gorgeous. I like to heat up my heat tool before I actually put it to the paper and the silver embossing, just to get it heated up, especially when you're using a metallic like silver or gold. So I have heated this all up. I'll show you the shine that it has, and it only takes a few minutes. Just make sure you go over the entire piece. I have stamped 3 of the sunshines, and right now I'm cutting them out just slightly with my scissors to make them a little bit more manageable. I've chosen 3 of the layering dies. I have one that goes on the exterior completely, one for the sun, and one that's about midway. And I'll be coloring these with my oxide inks. I'm starting off with antique linen and a blending tool. This is the first time I've used these with the blending tool, and they are so creamy, they go on really easily. I'm changing out the pad on my applicator tool, and I'm moving on to frayed burlap, mixing up the colors a little bit just around the sun on the outside. All that we'll be showing is the outside area of this image, and I'm adding 3 different colors, so antique linen, frayed burlap, and next I'm moving into walnut stain. For the interior sun and the exterior sun, I am starting off with iced spruce, and I'll also be using cracked pistachio and peacock feathers. So I'll be mixing these in together with the blending tool. This time I'm not going to change the pad between the colors, I'll just let them blend together. Here's a quick peek at how these will look once they're stacked. So I have that beigey color in between the background and the foreground, so that it has a little bit of dimension. You can add as much or as little color as you want with these oxide inks. They work really well. I am going to be spraying these with a little bit of water, so I have changed over. I have my glass cutting board in place and my spritzer bottle, and I will just spritz these a little bit with water. I like to go a little bit at a time, and if I want to go back and add more color, I can. So once I've given that a good spritz, about a foot away, I'll let that water set in just a little bit, grab a paper towel, and then I can blot up the color. This gives me a really nice variegated look to that color, and I can continue adding more ink on top, and it will stick to that watered area, and it'll actually be a little bit darker. So it's really fun with these inks to build up the color and get exactly what you want. At this point, I'm going back in with walnut stain and darkening up the edges of my beige piece. And once I spritz this again with water, it'll get that really nice oxidized look. I'm ready to start some assembly, and I realized I could cut my foam piece with one of the circle dies from that 9 layering piece die set. So I have cut my foam with, I think, the largest circle that there is in the pack, and I've just used some dot adhesive and put that onto the back of that sun. I also used some double-sided foam tape on the other layers, and once you stack those up, you really get the dimension between all of those layers of the sun. I'll be mounting all of my pieces onto a top folding Desert Storm card, and I have put this up so that the stamp is positioned to where it'll hit just right on that seam, and it will get onto the platform. I'm using the Circle Doodle stamp with the Simon Says Stamp white ink just to give me a nice faint background for the sun. I'm scoring now on the back side so I don't run any of the ink, and I'll place my sun to the upper portion of the card. For my message, I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Script Thanks. It's a 2-part die, but I'm just using the detail word. I'll be silver embossing this. I've cut this from Desert Storm cardstock so it'll match once you see the sides. To emboss this, I'll ink this up onto some scrap paper and sprinkle it with my silver embossing powder, tap it off, and then heat it with my heat gun. To glue my pieces together, I'm adding dots onto the top of the under layer with my 2-way glue pen, and I can put the top layer right on top and press those together, and it'll look somewhat like chipboard. I'm adding glue to the back as well with my glue pen, and once I have that all dotted up, I can turn it over and add it right to my card. I've added a bit of twine to this card, just wrapped around the front panel and tied in a bow. I'll lift this up so I can catch some light on that silver embossing. It's really gorgeous with the colors of blues, greens, and browns. Here's a look at my finished card. I did add some moonshine sequins around the sun and also a few around my message at the bottom. I really like the idea of having the layering dies along with the stamp so that I can stack things up and give everything so much more dimension. I hope you've enjoyed my Stamplistic inspiration, and as always, thanks so much for watching.